Welcome, everybody. Oh, there we go. Welcome, everybody. Thank you guys for being here tonight. My name's Tallene, and I'm the mentorship chair for PsychSIGN. I just want to thank you guys again for being here. And I also wanted to thank Dr. Gergis for kind of helping make this possible. She's the founder of the Psychiatry Network and helped really make this possible. And of course, thank you to all of our program directors for being here. We're going to start with some brief introductions of everybody, and then we're going to go into the common questions that we got from all of our applicants, and we'll have an open Q&A opportunity for everybody at the end. So Dr. Christina Gergis is a nationally known and recognized as a psychiatrist, innovator, entrepreneur, leader, and advocate, practicing consultation liaison psychiatry in the Chicago area for 12 years. As a graduate of the combined BS-MD program at Northeast Ohio Medical University, Dr. Gergis completed residency at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago and graduated with a primary care mental health integration prime fellowship at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Dr. Gergis is board certified in psychiatry and addiction medicine, and her roles include medical director of the Consultation Liaison Psychiatry Service at Edward Hydes VA Junior Hospital and associate director of the Psychiatry Residency Program at Loyola University, where she holds an appointment of associate professor and has been honored with many educational awards, including Educator of the Year. A strong advocate for women psychiatrists, Dr. Gergis has researched, published, and spoken on issues that affect women in medicine, including gender disparity, work-life balance, discrimination, and sexual harassment. In 2018 and 2019, Dr. Gergis developed and led the first two conferences for women psychiatrists in Scottsdale, Arizona, and Leesburg, VA, offering CME for clinical and professional development topics and networking opportunities for over 200 attendees. Since 2015, Dr. Gergis has united over 20,000 physicians in her psychiatry Facebook groups to teach, engage, and improve the treatment provided to patients every day. An expert on social media and psychiatry, Dr. Gergis has spoken nationally at academic institutions, presented workshops at National Society meetings, and published peer-reviewed articles on the topic. She is launching 2 podcasts in the next few months, one through a VA-sponsored innovation grant called Psychiatry Curbside, and one through her social media work called Drinks with Shrinks. Dr. Gergis is passionate in her commitment to the field of psychiatry and connecting its physicians who serve others.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our event tonight. And thank you so much to Tallene for helping to organize this, and to the PsychSIGN leadership who helped coordinate this as well. And thanks to all our program directors who joined us this late evening for taking the time and for giving us their expertise tonight, as well as their experience in this. And so I did want to also, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Tallene. Let me read her bio for you guys right here. So Tallene is a 4th-year medical student at Rocky Vista University, Colorado campus. She earned her Bachelor's of Science in Exercise Science and Health Promotion at Arizona State University, ASU, where she began to explore the various aspects involved in wellness in addition to healthcare disparities. She's currently applying to psychiatry residency and interested in pursuing consultation liaison psychiatry, true to my heart. So she was recently appointed to the Medical Student Education Subcommittee for the ACLP, Academy of Consultation Liaison Psychiatry. As a first-generation American and college student, she had begun her academic journey with significant challenges, but found success with the support of her community mentors. She became the PsychSIGN mentorship chairs after 6 years of mentorship experience with pre-medical students and preclinical medical students, specializing in uplifting other first-generation students and students from low-income backgrounds. Wanting to fight for marginalized communities, she became passionate about the intersection of psychiatry and advocacy, working on various policies throughout the last 3 years with the American Medical Association. Recently, she completed a fellowship in HIV psychiatry with the American Psychiatric Association. Currently, she's focused on researching mental health outcomes in Armenian refugees and looks forward to continuing her work as a researcher and patient advocate. So quite an accomplished fourth-year student. And so now we're gonna just tell you a little bit about the program directors who are joining us tonight. We have 5 program directors from 5 different programs all across the nation who are joining us. The first program director that I'd like to introduce is Dr. Saba Afzal. Dr. Afzal is the residency training director of the General Psychiatry Residency Program of Hackensack Meridian Health Ocean University Medical Center. She also serves as an assistant professor of psychiatry at Hackensack Meridian School of Medicine. Prior to joining HMH, she finished her residency training at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School, where she was also selected as chief resident. Dr. Afzal has received various teaching and leadership awards during her residency training, as well as during her appointment as psychiatry faculty at Hackensack Meridian. She has a strong interest in research and currently has grant support for an IRB-approved research project and many accepted or presented research posters. She also has authored many peer-reviewed publications. Dr. Afzal is also the primary preceptor and site clerkship director to medical students and has been an integral member of the academic leadership team at Hackensack Meridian Health.
I'd like to introduce Dr. Benedicto Borja, who is currently the program director for George Washington University Department of Psychiatry Residency Training Program. He has previously served as the first medical director of the crisis services at Shepherd Pratt Health System for the past decade and was instrumental in its development. At Shepherd Pratt, he also served as the associate program director position in the University of Maryland Shepherd Pratt Residency and director of residency and medical student education. Dr. Borja helped successfully launch a new psychiatry residency at Virginia Tech Carl Leon School of Medicine. He was also instrumental in creating the psychiatric emergency services at the University of Maryland and served as its medical director. He is a graduate of the charter class of the University of Maryland Shepherd Pratt Psychiatry Residency Program, where he served as chief resident. Dr. Borja served as a senior oral board examiner for the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology from 2002 to 2015. Dr. Borja's academic career has been primarily focused upon psychiatry residency and medical student education. His major areas of clinical expertise and scholarship are telepsychiatry and emergency psychiatry and crisis intervention. He is certified in electroconvulsive therapy and EMDR treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Thank you. And so our next program director is Dr. Thedia Carey. Dr. Carey is the program director for the Authority Health Psychiatry Residency Program, as well as the medical director of Development Centers, which is a nonprofit community mental health clinic in Detroit. She's board certified in both general psychiatry and addiction psychiatry by the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology. She's also board certified in addiction medicine by the American Board of Preventive Medicine. Dr. Thedia LaRue Carey is a native Detroiter. She has completed all her schooling in the city. She's a product of Detroit Public Schools, graduating from Mumford High School. Dr. Carey has 2 Bachelor of Science degrees from Wayne State University in Biological Sciences and Psychology. She also has a Doctor of Medicine and Master of Science in Psychiatry and Behavioral Neuroscience degrees from Wayne State University School of Medicine. Dr. Carey completed her postgraduate training in psychiatry and addiction psychiatry at the University of Michigan Health System. Dr. Carey is committed to improving the quality of treatment services provided to individuals with mental illness, including substance use disorders in Detroit. She works as medical director and psychiatrist at Development Centers, a nonprofit community mental health clinic with multiple locations in Detroit. She's committed to educating the next generation of mental health professionals. Dr. Carey is currently the program director for Authority Health Psychiatry Residency. She teaches medical students, resident physicians, social work interns, nurse practitioners, and psychology fellows at multiple institutions. Finally, Dr. Carey is a loving wife and mother, and in her spare time, she enjoys sewing, knitting, and crocheting.
Thank you. Dr. Erin Crocker is the Residency Training Director and a Clinical Associate Professor of Psychiatry at the University of Iowa, Carver College of Medicine. Her primary clinical interests are in the area of outpatient and perinatal psychiatry and in the use of brief supportive therapy in all patient care settings. She serves as a provider communication specialist at the University of Iowa, helping providers to enhance the relationship-centered communication skills with patients. Some of her favorite parts of being a training director have been developing new elective rotations for residents based on their own areas of interest within the field, helping to support and foster each resident's unique educational and professional path, and having lots of fun at various resident faculty events throughout the year, such as kickball games, during which the faculty always manage to have lots of fun while losing by a hefty point margin.
And last but not least, we have Dr. Scott Oakman. Dr. Oakman grew up in southern Minnesota and followed a nonlinear path to psychiatry that wandered through 6 years of youth ministry work, a PhD in neuroscience, and medical school at the University of Minnesota before starting residency and addiction psychiatry fellowship at the University of Michigan. He has been a hospital psychiatrist at Regions Hospital in St. Paul, Minnesota for 17 years and director of the Hennepin Regions Psychiatry Training Program for 9 years. He and his wife, Anita, live in the Twin Cities and enjoy music and theater as they attempt to coordinate the comings and goings of their 4 children, the grad school baby, the med school baby, the residency baby, and the fellowship baby. So thank you again. And one of them, it looks like, is waving to us right now.
That's the fellowship baby. He's the only one left at home.
Okay. And so, yeah, thank you again to all the program directors who have joined us tonight. We really appreciate all your time. As Talene mentioned, I really like to bring people together. I like to bring psychiatrists together, and I like to fill gaps in where they're needed. And I really felt like, after talking with Talene, that this was possibly a needed gap for medical students, and that this was information that students were seeking. And so hopefully this brings some needed information for you guys. And so what we're going to do is answer some pre-selected questions that were sent in to Talene via survey ahead of time, that our program directors will answer and go through for the next hour or so. And then towards the end, we do have an open Q&A that, if you would like, anytime between now and then, you're welcome to put questions in the chat box, and then I will read some of those questions at the end, and we will try to answer as many of those as possible. All right, and so I will let Talene get started with our first question. And by the way, we have about, it looks like 90 participants right now, so that's a lot.
Yeah, I'm so glad everyone could make it tonight.
Yeah.
Our first question was, what makes an applicant stand out on a virtual platform?
So I'm going to have all our program directors unmute themselves so that we can kind of freely chat. And I think this is a really interesting question, because I think, you know, it's kind of it's a tough thing to think about, right? Like what would make you stand out on a virtual platform versus in person, right? So what do you guys think? Like, based on what you saw last year, what you're looking forward to this year, and some of you may have even started.
We really found that we needed to prepare ourselves a little bit better as a program. And we all decided on a set of structured questions. We wanted to make sure that we had some things to level the playing field. So we were all kind of coming at each applicant from the same material. And that's really helped us a lot. And it's helped us to see, I think, how well the applicant engages and with us and with our program's values, and not so much with how they're dressed or how good of a day they're having at that particular time. I'll just leave it.
I just feel that overall you have to try harder to, engage with the faculty and the person who you are interviewing with as compared to when you are there for in-person interview. That's what I felt. I feel like it's easy to, hold the conversation when you are in person. There are so many things that you can discuss just in the office space or what you have noticed in the interview room, waiting room. But while, you are sitting at Zoom, just looking at each other, it is just very much, more of an effort to engage and really hold the conversation and make it interesting. I think just having a person you can relate to, a candidate who's more personable, just, being himself or herself and just, answering the question and showing genuine interest and motivation, I think they really stand out. And I will say that personally, I feel like sometimes bit of quirkiness also stands out, like something about your life, your hobby that, it sticks with us then. I remember interviewing an applicant who mentioned about filmmaking and, all those sort of interesting things. So something from your personal life, it also tells us that you are able to have a good life balance. I'm not going to say work-life balance. I feel like work is part of your life. So overall, it makes you a well-rounded psychiatrist as well.
I think what's true for applicants is true for training programs, that when you're on a virtual platform, you really have to be communicating your energy and your enthusiasm just much more consistently and intentionally. And those long Zoom days do feel so draining, but kind of at the end of it, really what does stand out is I really got the sense that we would be a good fit for this person based on their interests and their goals. There were clear reasons why they thought our program could be a good fit. And interpersonally, they engaged and just seemed like they were genuinely interested, which I know that can lag with these long virtual days, but it really helps.
I just wanted to add, it's all about also practicing yourself. How do you look on a Zoom platform? We talked earlier when the program directors got in earlier. What's your background like? These small things add up a lot. And I like what Seba said about just being yourself. If you have pets in the area or, this is who you are. I always encourage the applicants to smile. I just noticed, I felt bad for Christina. She froze and, the worst thing happens and you just continue to smile and be yourself, because you're going to have to show a little, and with practice, show interest, as Erin said, and that takes a little bit more effort. You could do that with a colleague of yours. You could see how you look to and how you look explicit with your language. Remember, in Zoom, we're not seeing the nonverbal cues that we would normally do if we saw you in person. So things like you may have to say, I appreciate what you said. And if the interviewer said something and you didn't understand, it's okay to ask that, especially with the connection, the Wi-Fi, having your cell phone available as a backup. It's okay. You're not gonna lose brownie points. Remember, this is your 25-minute time with the program director and the interviewer. And I always try, the eye contact. This is very important, especially with Zoom fatigue. I always encourage the applicants, breathe. It's okay. Just breathe. We're all humans here. It's not the end of the world. I make mistakes, and sometimes we have breakout rooms. I end up in the wrong breakout room. Oh, sorry. Go into the next one. It's just part of the day. And most of all, at the end of the day, just have fun. This is all about knowing and getting to know people. Have fun, smile. It's all about the experience.
Yeah, I like a lot of these responses. I agree with, especially with all the troubleshooting. You're right. I mean, I did just freeze. So some of the, I like that, if something happens that somebody doesn't necessarily get flustered and, just kind of goes with the flow and, helps to troubleshoot, and we just kind of get on with the situation and it's not a big deal. because that's going to show us actually like how you're going to function as a resident when you're going to be under stress as a resident, you know, having to juggle 10 different things. How are you going to manage that under stress on call versus just on a Zoom call and dealing with the stress of, you know, dealing with being frozen or whatever it is. So yeah, I like.
And just make sure, yes, when you do panic, make sure it's on mute. You know, I think Aaron was mentioning earlier something you don't want to have them hear what you're saying when it's unmuted. So
You don't want to hear my dog chewing or squeaker toy in the background. If I can just, I use the clapping hands emoji, Benedicta, when you said
yes.
smile.
Yeah.
I understand. I think what happens sometimes is people are so interested in like they're taking notes or they're really focusing on what you're saying, but sometimes that doesn't look great on the video. So like just being mindful. Yeah, it's hard to do, but it's just a skill set we're all building.
I'm going to add actually just one more thing, because I'm noticing I'm just looking at people's names here. And some of you guys have who are not on camera, which is fine. But some of you guys who are not on camera just have a first name. You don't have your full name written out. So making sure your Zoom profile settings are updated. So your first and last name is on there. Making sure actually you can upload a picture so that when your face is not on Zoom, that there's like a nice headshot. Maybe it's your school headshot or whatever is on there. I think that always looks nice so that there's something showing. I think that always looks really, just looks nice from like just a visual perspective.
Yeah, we always tell our applicants as soon as we're having the group session for check-in, put your med school right after your name because you're going to be in and out of group sessions all day. So it'll save just so much question and answer. Just, you know, let us know who you are. I see some of you have got your pronouns up there. That's great. Please do that. We appreciate it.
I personally think also like lighting is really important. I have a ring light. I don't know, this is like $30 off of Amazon, which by the way, I'm boycotting Amazon as of this week, but that's a whole other story. But you can get one of these, you know, just anywhere. So lighting is really important. You know, your background, I think you guys were mentioning is important. Just all of that, just the optics of everything.
Yeah, Christina, I would just like one more point here that looking at your camera when you are talking, it also helps with engagement.
Yeah, I actually put what I'm looking at right under where my camera is because I've noticed, because I actually have two monitors also. And so sometimes I'm looking over here, but my camera's over here. So just kind of making sure that you're always near where your camera is actually like facing. So yeah. Just small tips for, you know, managing Zoom calls, which we're all on all day now. So, okay, any other last minute tips we have to answer this question?
Yep, and I didn't want to embarrass the folks using their phone. It's okay, but if for your interviews, my personal suggestion, use your laptop. You know, the phone kind of limits your view of the, you know, of when we're looking at you. You know, it's like a vertical view. It would really be good if you use a laptop. Again, for tonight, that's fine, but just my personal opinion, the laptop is really helpful in getting the full view. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, and on your interview day, if laptops are a barrier, ask your College of Medicine for an interview space where they can actually give you like a room within the medical school that has stable internet and all that.
Yes, that was going to be one of my suggestions, is plugging in to the internet as opposed to using Wi-Fi. It helps limit the glitching and decrease the chance that your call will drop.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that very robust discussion. So second question that we had is, when should letters of interest be sent out, and does sending one tend to increase the chances of being invited to an interview?
I'll start this time. So letters of interest, I think, can be beneficial if they are done well. So being thoughtful of which programs you're sending the letter to. Are you using the correct email address? So I have a pet peeve that if someone Googles me and finds my University of Michigan email at the School of Social Work and sends me a letter of interest to the residency program there, I don't even look at the name. It just goes in the trash. That's the wrong email. And so making sure you're sending it to the right email, which is of course in ARIS. And so that's very important. And the other thing is make your letter of interest, make sure it's specific to the program. And so we're a community-based program. We're not a hospital or university. So in letters that are referencing your prestigious hospital or the faculty at your wonderful university, I know that it was kind of a cookie cutter email and not specific to Authority Health. So making sure it's specific to the program.
I agree with Dr. Carey. I would just add here, I think that letter of interest should be, of course, specific to the program, but be careful who you are addressing. Because I have received many letters where it says, hi, Miss Afzal. And, my program coordinator, Roseanne Laura, it says, hi, Dr. Laura. So that's also like really off-putting that you did not even look at the names properly. And, you are mixing the program director and the coordinator. So that goes into the trash as well. I would just add one thing that I'm not sure about increasing the chances of you being invited just based on the letter of interest. I think, again, it's just the holistic review of the application. So if you're really, putting a lot of effort and putting a really good letter of interest where you are summarizing your achievements, chances are that we will go into the eras and look at your application. And then based on that application review, we make the decision, not just based on the letter of interest content.
I have noticed, and I know that this probably is not supposed to make a big difference, but particularly for like regional situations where, somebody is applying and they're not from this regional area. And so we may not have looked at their application, but they're a good applicant. But there's maybe a particular reason and it just didn't stand out in their application. If we get a letter later down the line saying, oh, we were interested in your program because of X, Y, and Z, even though we're from a different region, sometimes it'll make us look at their application and potentially send a letter of invitation later on down the line. So.
There was a question, I think, in the chat that popped up of what should be in the letter of interest. I think that's, just to echo some of the mention already of it should be specific to the program, addressing the right people. And a lot of the times, for me, the answer to the first question of like, does it increase the chance someone will get invited to interview? The answer is no, but it does if it's crafted well, if it talks specifically about what my training program offers and why that would be a good fit. And then also if there's like no clarity as to any regional connection and there might be something there, then it doesn't necessarily prompt me to invite the person, but it can prompt me to revisit the application.
Hard because sometimes ARIS does us no favors whatsoever. If a kid has grown up in the Twin Cities, but went to Stanford for undergraduate and went to Brown for medical school, and their dream has been to come back to the Twin Cities and practice community psychiatry. If they don't tell us that in their personal statement, and if they don't contact us and say, I really, really want to come back and live in Minneapolis and take care of the underserved in my home city, we're going to miss them because we're just going to say, why would they be interested in us if they went to Brown?
I think some of the letters that carry the most weight, frankly, are ones from advisors or faculty who say, I know this student and they've asked me to send like one letter and it's to your program. If that's true for you as a student, there's like one program that you feel like it would be the perfect fit for you. then you can always approach one of your advisors and ask them to send, a specific message on your behalf, because that can really be quite helpful too.
The first part of that question was, when should they be sent? They really need to be sent before all of the interview invitations have been sent. And this year for us, that was like October 15th. We got some very good letters of interest like last week, and they were actually a little too late. So it really is a difficult situation to be in. And again, those were applications that either were sent late into ERIS or were just not couched in a way that they came to our attention in our screening of the 900 applications that we had to get through.
Yeah, I think that's definitely been a really hot topic this year for a lot of virtual interviews. So thank you guys for providing some clarity on that. Did anybody want to add anything before we go to our next question? Okay, so our next question is, what are the attributes that make a candidate memorable in the program director's eyes?
My favorite moment at the end of an interview is when I leave the interview having a really good sense of the ways in which my program could help the applicant reach their specific goals. So if somebody has done their homework and has a good sense of, unique clinical experiences or opportunities and can speak eloquently about how they hope to use those opportunities to develop into the practitioner that they plan to be, that really helps me. Like, if I feel like we're just going to be a great fit and be able to offer that, that's a really wonderful feeling at the end of an interview.
I'm not too hard to please, so I'm pretty laid back. But what, and if I could use another word aside from memorable, is an applicant who's, and just like what Erin said, has done the research, who has taken the time to know a lot about the program, not just from the website, but has taken the time from the word of mouth, from from prior graduates, and comes in and they've been asking thoughtful and insightful questions, and that they're really interested, and they know the faculty, they know everything about even the call schedule, and they want to be there, and they have a lot to offer. So when you ask them, what can you do for us? And they'll say, oh, we'll be happy to recruit for you. We'd be happy to teach your medical students, without being told to do so. And then, of course, you start hearing feedback just during the day. They're nice to everybody. They are trainable, they're enthusiastic, they're pleasant to work with. Those are things that those are the folks that you want, and they don't have to be superstars. They're the solid citizens that you want.
Yeah, I second Dr. Borja. I feel like the academic skill set is something that we already review before you are coming for the interview. So when you are sitting there, it's more like, your communication skills, your ability to connect with us and show us that you are genuinely interested in the program. And I really like if applicant is asking, informed and thoughtful questions rather than just the generalized questions. And I sometimes feel that there are a few questions that they could have asked the night before when they were with the residents, like asking about, what if I'm not able to do that call? So what's going to happen? I feel like these are the questions they can just easily ask the night before, rather than, asking at that time when they're sitting with the program director. They could have asked more insightful questions. So doing your homework and just ability to just, go with the flow of the conversation rather than having a memorized answer. I think that's also something which is very important for me.
Dr. Carey, you're nodding your head.
Yes, I think being your authentic self and carefully listening to the question that you are asked and do your best to answer the question. So for example, now anyone who's interviewing will know, but I ask, my first question is, I read your personal statement. I read your whole application. I want to hear verbally from you. Why are you choosing psychiatry? Things come across differently when we can talk about our interests. So I don't want you to try to regurgitate what you said in your personal statement. I want you to speak from the heart. Oh, it was this person or this specific event in my life that kind of turned the light bulb on for me to love psychiatry. And now every rotation, this is, that's what I want, not to try to, well, like I said in my personal statement, I just told you, I don't want your personal statement. I read it already. And then I would agree with the very thoughtful questions. So even the routine question that almost every applicant seems to ask is, what would be the perfect resident or the perfect applicant for your program? And so some of them like listen intently and then that's it. They go on to the next question. But the applicants that stick out are the ones that say, oh yeah, so you want someone that's a self-starter. I am definitely a self-starter. I started this business, or I started this volunteer organization, or I started this. That's your opportunity to kind of take what is a routine question and show how you fit the bill. And that really sticks out. And like I say, the thoughtful question, this is the first time today in an interview, an applicant asked me, I know that you've read my personal statement and my application. How do you think I would fit into your program? I've never had anyone ask that question before. And so that really stood out, that she wanted my perspective. And of course, I have grandiose ideas for every resident. And I do start, as I'm thinking about who I want to come to my program, I start thinking about, oh, well, this one with this skills could do this. And, then I have to kind of come down to, where we both want that goal for that applicant. And so I thought that was a wonderful question that really stood out, because I have been doing virtual interviews for 4 years now, and that was the first time I got that question.
Yeah, I'm not trying to find the ideal resident. I am trying to find future colleagues. I'm trying to staff our hospitals, and frankly, 2/3 of our grads are employed within 40 miles of our hospitals, and of our last 16 grads, we've got 6 of them on staff of our 2 hospitals. So we really are trying to build our, we're trying to replace ourselves, frankly. And we like keeping our residents around. So we're looking for people we want to work with for the rest of our careers. So, do we click with these folks or not?
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it too, I think. So next question that I think we're going to move on to is, what things can medical students do to show dedication to the specialty? I mean, aren't we all dedicated to the specialty anyway, but.
I think that there's a lot of different ways that, some people even have volunteer experiences from, when they were back in undergraduate that kind of laid the framework for that. For some people, it's more so, volunteering at like the free mental health clinic as a medical student on the weekends, or that's just an example from our medical school, but opportunities like that. Seeing that someone has done research in psychiatry is a helpful indicator. And then like just kind of the bare bones, like the basics, I want to see that you excelled in the psychiatry clerkship, and that you have strong letters from psychiatrists who worked with you clinically. It's great to have like a department chair letter, but if that person really could barely pick you out of a lineup, that's not going to carry as much weight for me as someone who can tell me how many weeks they worked with you and in what setting.
I agree. I think that, a lot of community work, as Dr. Crocker mentioned, and a lot of, research work, and really genuinely showing interest in psychiatry that reflects on your application, and not just on your application, even in your personal statement. I feel like that your personal statement, sometimes I read it's about story of Mr. X or Miss Y that you met at the emergency room, and then there's a whole paragraph of that person life and that, how they change your life. But it should be more about yourself than their story. So yes, you learn something from them, but I just see that a lot, that oftentimes that you are so focused on the story that you are forgetting to really, put yourself out there and really telling us that why you are interested in psychiatry. So, and even with the letter of recommendations, I feel like if you can encourage the faculty who's writing the letter of recommendation, if they can talk about the particular interaction or strength they have noticed when you are on the rotation, that really helps. Just the generic, he's hardworking team player, XYZ, it's not gonna tell us much about your interest in psychiatry, rather than personalized examples in the letter of recommendation.
Any last minute thoughts with that question? Okay, with that one, what?
Yeah, short of being able to do an audition elective. I mean, COVID came along and that limited. That is a great opportunity. But that might tie in just to the question that I saw in the chat room. What is your advice to non-US IMGs applying to the match? And is it important to have a US observership LOR from a US psychiatrist? I mean, it's tough for an IMG to get an audition elective. The other thing that I personally look at is your life experience. For me, my father was a psychiatrist and my wife is a psychiatrist. So if I were to apply again, I would say something to that effect, that somehow that is my dedication to the specialty. I grew up with psychiatrists. Somehow that must have been a positive influence. So that is unique to you, and share it. Share it in a way. If you have in your personal statement, remember it's a personal statement, that you had a patient you treated or a family member that you think influenced a lot, share it. That is something that you feel that was important in your decision to be a psychiatrist. I think if disclosed in an appropriate way, that would be very important as well. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you, Dr. Borja. Our next question is really focused at, the interview cycle is several months long. And so a common question we received is, how can applicants show continued interest in programs that they interviewed at throughout the cycle?
I'll jump in. I think it's, I love hearing from applicants, and it's, I think also it's a very busy time for program directors. So I think being able to observe when students kind of have a good sense of like the sheer volume of emails coming in at this time of year. And, maybe if they reach out to me, but then if they have other questions later, they reach out to the chiefs that they interviewed with, or just kind of demonstrate not only that resourcefulness, but also like maintaining multiple points of connection. I think that can be helpful for the training team to have a sense of interest, and hopefully also for the applicant to maintain more than just one point of contact.
We've just always tried to keep expectations really clear, that if we invited you, we were interested in you, and that you don't have to continue to remind us that you were interested enough to apply to us. If you were interested enough to show up to an interview, interested enough to apply, and interested enough to keep your appointment with us, even a virtual appointment, we consider you to still be interested. So and basically when we sign off after your interview day, we will say thanks for coming, You'll hear from us again in January with just a reminder and good luck email. And again, that is all we mean. We mean good luck. It's been great to meet you. If you have any further questions, we want to hear from you. We will answer questions, and God bless all of you. We would love to see you. I sincerely mean it. Every interview day, we interview 8 people. I would take all 8 of them in a minute and call the whole thing off. I'd be happy with that. And, but the match is the match. But,
Yeah, I mean, we honestly have zero expectations that students will continue to communicate with us like throughout the process afterwards. And we don't hold it against students or assume that students are not interested, because the majority of students actually don't communicate with us. And so if we went by that, then we wouldn't be ranking anybody. And so we just assume that the handful, like we probably, I don't know, maybe a quarter of the students will communicate with us, and maybe those are the most interested students, but and that may factor a little bit, but really it doesn't factor, it tells us, okay, great, they're interested, but it doesn't mean that we think that the other 75% are not interested. So yeah.
We know this is nerve-wracking, and I don't know how else to just say, no number of emails is going to reduce your anxiety level about this. So just go to a concert, go out to eat, try and forget about it.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it really doesn't. I mean, the way I do on my wrap up is I just tell people, like, you are welcome to reach out if it would be helpful or if you have other questions, but like there's no expectation at all. And yeah, I don't think, I mean, it doesn't really change the way we think about it, because I agree with Scott. Like if somebody wanted to interview and apply, that already, but it's like we're available, but we don't expect it by any means.
Right. And it does not change where you land on our rank list, because our rank list is based on the interview day, that interaction with, whoever's interviewing you, whether it's faculty or residents. And we sit down and do our rank list based on that. It doesn't, the extra emails do not increase or raise you to the top of the list.
And I will add that especially the extra phone calls, they don't add any value to the application. It can land you in the hot water if you keep calling the coordinators or the program directors, the number that you find on the website. So please, please, please be careful with that.
And again, there is a delicate balance. I agree with all the program directors, but having said that, if you're really interested, and this is just my personal opinion, radio silence is also a dilemma, where I'll suddenly hear the day before, and you're so interested, when maybe a couple of emails, just quick ones in between, and you were really interested just to remind us, just like Scott said, Scott, I'm a PGY 21, and 21 years ago, it wasn't this competitive. My heart bleeds. I wish I could take everybody, but there's that one person who is a little shy and is trying not to overdo it, but really wants to come, and had asked me probably at the end of the interview, is it okay if I send something? And I said, sure, probably just to remind me of your interest, and did have a legitimate interest, maybe once every month or so. And just to remind me that, hey, when the time comes somewhere, just remember me, and it may help or not. Again, radio silence is something that you have to balance with, where suddenly you just send a whole blast where it will get lost in the whole skew of things. Again, it's a balance.
Great, thanks for the responses to that. And so the next question that we have is, what is the most important thing students should think of when choosing how to rank programs? I mean, that's a very broad question.
I will start. Rank based on where you want to be, what program you think speaks to your personal values and mission in life. Which program do you think is going to train you to be the type of psychiatrist you want to be? If you want to be a psychiatrist that does research, then of course you're probably going to rank very highly an institution that does research. If you want to be a community psychiatrist and work in the community mental health with the underserved population, then probably a program like Scott's or mine is going to be the program for you. So knowing what you really want for your next stage.
But you know what? The D and I went to the same residency program, and I went to that program thinking I was going to be a bench to bedside researcher. So, you know, that program was definitely the right program for me to train in at the University of Michigan. And it had a lot of flexibility in me eventually choosing a career as a psychiatric educator in a community program. So allow yourself the flexibility to eventually change career paths in life.
Yes, that's okay too.
I agree with everything that Thaddeus and Scott has said. And I think too, you know, there's so many questions and nitty gritty and numbers, you know, how many residents are in the program, how many faculty are there, and what's the call frequency, to get all these graphs and charts and numbers and data points. And I just feel like, you know, if you want to do that throughout the season, do it. But then at the end, like, take a step away from all those numbers and all those nitty gritty details and just think about, like, where do I feel like I would feel really comfortable just with the team and the people. And like, if I was having my worst day ever, that I could just be like, know that I feel supported, feel comfortable just being real and being like, I'm having the worst day ever. So there's sort of that like quality that you can't necessarily put a finger on, that I think at the end of the day translates to just like being happy at work, like feeling like it's a good fit for your personality.
Yeah, I agree with everyone. And I think it's very important because residency is a very stressful time. So just, follow your gut, trust your heart. If you feel like this is the place where you will be happy, think about your interview day, your interaction with faculty, the co-residents, then go for it rather than looking at the metrics, this program versus this program ranking and all those sort of things. At the end of the day, if I have to just put it in one word, I think it's just trust your gut.
And just to add,
Yeah, and
aside from the training and aside from the people, the question, and I think this is one of the top 5 reasons for the past 10 years, you want to ask yourself the question, could I see myself living? Could I see myself living and working in the place for the next 4 years? If you're fast tracking 3 years, so you're technically going to be married to us for 4 years. And that's a commitment. And you want to look at that.
And it's sometimes more than 4 years. Many residents, they tend to just stay at the place where they get their training, as a faculty.
Correct. They stay on, yes.
Well, and you use the word married, and I just want to say, don't sacrifice your wife and kids for your career. And I'd say this in all seriousness. Your family is forever, and you got to do what's best for them as well. And so if you're going into residency with kids, think about who's going to be helping you with them when they're on call, when you're on call, and think about how far it is from your residency program to grandma and grandpa's house and things like that. It's really important.
I mean, I just ranked based, in addition to, I love the type of training that that my program ended up having when I went into residency, but I also really strongly based it on the residents. And honestly, it just seemed like there were just groups of residents that I felt like I could get along with, and I would fit in well with, and then other groups of residents that I was like, I don't know, I just didn't quite feel like it would be a good personal fit for me. And so those were programs that I ranked a little bit lower, and it just ended up working out that way. So I don't know if that was the best way to do it or not, but that's how I did it.
Thank you guys for all of that insight. Our next question is in a lot of ways the flip of that. So it's what qualities do you guys look at when determining how to rank candidates?
I'll jump in. I think one of us already answered that we are looking for the future colleagues. We are not just looking at the applicant as, just the application. It's a holistic review, just looking at the whole application, your academic skill set, your experiences, your attributes, and, your interpersonal and communication skill, but most importantly, how you connect with us and with other faculty members and the other residents. Really hoping to establish the long-term relationship with the candidate.
There's an article, we talk about this sometimes at our rank discussion meetings, and there's an article in the New York Times like a few years ago about super chickens. I don't know if anyone read the article or remembers this article, but it just talks about how super chickens aren't like the best chickens that you necessarily want to like go for, right? That actually like you want average chickens all around you, right? So and actually what we do is we don't look for the super chickens. We don't look like for the necessarily like the best of the best, like the creme de la creme. Like we look for medical students who we think will be able to function well on call. That's actually one of the top things that we look for. Like we think, is this person going to be able to handle a night of call well? Like that's one of the like number one things. And we base that on a number of things, like just from the interview and like some of the things that we talk about, et cetera. And then, just kind of a goodness of fit, their interest in the program, et cetera. But it's just kind of, like, it's a global thing, but it's not, we're not looking for like the highest, scores or anything like that. It's just, we're looking for like solid applicants who we think would get along in our program. And we kind of base it on previous residents who have gone through our program. And so if it seems like they are gonna fit based on that, it's like a sort of a, we actually do have criteria that we're using and that we are kind of checking off and ranking based on that, but that's sort of a general, kind of a more general explanation of it.
And well said, as Christina, it goes back to what I said earlier. I have nothing against superstars. If we can have them, sure. But if we can get the solid citizen who's just going to come in and do the work, trust me, it's okay to have drama, but too much drama is kind of a headache. And I have 27 residents right now, and I spend 80% of my time on 2 of them, and I feel bad about the other 25. And I'm just being very honest. We're here to work as a team, and everybody wants to learn, but that is what that's what we're here for. So we do our best. We do our best in what we try and do.
I will just add one more thing here, that if you have any red flag in your application, there are gaps, or there were some disciplinary action, if you can please explain in the personal statement that why it was the case, that really helps us to really filter and make sure that you get invited for the interview. Because sometimes we are looking for an answer, we see that in the application, but you don't say anything in the personal statement explaining yourself. Because if you are able to overcome some of the challenges in your life, that tells us that there is some resilience. There's a good distress tolerance. So that is actually a good thing. It goes in your favor. So please try to explain that. Some people think that bringing this up, in the personal statement would highlight it. It's not the case, because we are already looking at it in the dean's letter or, or anything else. So please explain in the personal statement if you have gap, or if there's any red flag or whatnot that might, help you, because we can see where this is coming from.
And see, but I have a question for that. That's a great point. Do you recommend to the applicants here that when they are interviewed, they bring it up right away, or should we ask them about it? What's the best approach?
I usually let the conversation flow and see, where it takes. And I just, it's more like, just taking the conversation in that direction, and then, automatically it brings up, rather than just asking like randomly that, hey, I saw that in your application, so can you explain that? So it's more of a, conversation, and then they bring up, and if they explain it well, so, it really matters to us that, oh, this person must be very resilient. They did XYZ and they were able to overcome, a lot of things in their life. So that really takes you higher up on the rank order list. The only reason I'm bringing this up, because I have noticed while I was going through the application that there were red flags and, the MSPs and, letter of recommendations, but there was no mention in the personal statement. And when the applicant is sitting in front of me, sometimes I see something and they're very hesitant to even talk about it. If you have an explanation, that will help you. Trust me.
We're looking to turn red flags into green flags, I think. Psychiatry, I think in particular, is looking to build a diverse representative workforce. And that means people who have overcome a lot of diversity, people who are first generation college grads, people who are coming from immigrant communities and communities of color. And we know that there's going to be step one fails there. We know that there are going to be gap years there for academic reasons. And for family drama reasons. I've read about a lot of them, and I've still invited a lot of them for interviews, because we know that they represent the population that we are serving right now in Minneapolis. And we really would like to train those medical students as psychiatrists. But we really want to be able to see that they can handle the work, I guess. So
I think this question stirred up a lot of, there's one question asking, would parental leave be considered a red flag in terms of
No.
a gap year?
No.
And I would
it
say no
wouldn't.
also, yeah.
It would not be a red flag, but
Yeah.
you should definitely speak to it.
Yeah.
You would speak to why your medical school was 5 years and most people's are 4. I had to do that because I had my baby when I was my first child as a medical student. And so it is what it is. And the fact that you had the forethought to decide that I'm having this child and I'm going to need more time. So I'm going to take the time needed to have a healthy family. And then I'm going to pick this up. That shows great strength than someone who's trying to power through it and still finish in 4 years. That's a well-balanced individual. And that's what we want, because you're going to have hiccups along the way. And how are you going to navigate that is what's more important than the fact that you had a hiccup.
And you're going to end up working it out with one of your colleagues to do a part-time residency, I think, right? Isn't that how you're going to work out your second kid?
That's exactly what I did. So myself and actually one of our fellow residents, we were in medical school together. Both of us had our first child in medical school, 6 weeks apart, no less. Her son is 6 weeks older than my daughter. And then during residency, we both had young kids at home, and we wanted to go part-time because we wanted to be a part of their life. You don't have these small humans to not watch them grow up. And so our program director let us go part-time. So her and I were, at one point, we were considered one resident because we were splitting the inpatient unit. So it was, your doctor is Carrie Fitzgerald. And then in our third year of residency, we both had children again. my son is 8 weeks older than her second son. And so, you know, life happens, but the fact that you're able to navigate it and make a healthy choice, and the only person who can say that that was a healthy choice is you.
There was another question surrounding that. If the red flag or interruption is due to more personal reasons, i.e. personal health, to what extent should it be explained to prevent possible speculations, but also balance with protection of privacy?
I think you should share as much as you feel comfortable so that we understand the red flag. Do you have to go into deep detail? It's not necessary, but we want to know, is this a personal issue that you were able to overcome, or a health condition, or is this still an ongoing health condition, which is why you don't want to talk about it, that could adversely affect your ability to function as a resident? So, you know, I had to talk about that in my personal statement as well, because I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease when I was 16 years old. And so, of course, that delayed all of my, you know, college years, you know, to navigate the health condition. I did have to take a small leave during my medical school. And I explained it, you know, it's like, hey, I had to do this. My health had to come first. I can't be a good doctor if I'm not healthy. And that worked to my favor, as opposed to trying to hide it or skirt the edges of my health challenge.
Christina, I would add to that you know, the life experience is what impresses us, that the resilience, but more importantly, what was the strategy you employed? We love to hear that. How did you use that? And just like one of the program directors said, you know, call is brutal, and we want to see how you're gonna you're gonna use that same strategy to get through call, to get through the tough interactions with attendings, to get through the tough patients, to get through the tough decisions. That's what we're looking for.
We've talked a lot about like the superstars, or maybe if folks have had a lot of adversity, but like, you know, however, whether you're worried about red flags or whatever it is, I think at the end of the day, like getting back to where it started, how do we look at ranking people? We just want to know who you are in your story. And I think sometimes that doesn't translate as well in the virtual format for some folks, just depending on like how comfortable they feel being themselves, or maybe how anxious they are. But if we have a good sense of who you are, and I mean, like the whole panel has talked about, if I can see you being a junior colleague and joining the field, and conversation flows, and I have a sense of who you are and that you have a good attitude, that's all we could ask for and hope for.
Well, I'm gonna move on to a different category of question. One question that came up was, how are programs planning to adjust to step one going to pass fail?
For us, it won't really be a big adjustment because we don't really pay a huge amount of attention to those numbers.
Yeah, it doesn't matter for me either. I don't even look at them.
Just pass, baby.
Yeah, same.
Same here.
I mean, this year previously we had been including scores for the interviewers packets. So if somebody was interviewing you, they would have your step one scores and everything like in front of them as they were interviewing you. And so after, you know, the announcement last year, and for some other reasons this year, for the first time, we decided that we are not going to include that information in the packets for the interviewers. And so we're just saying that if you are being invited for an interview, that means you are, you know, being invited. So that means your scores were good enough and that's that. And so that the scores at that point are irrelevant. And so we're adjusting in that way ourselves. So. Okay, I think we're all on the same page with that one, I guess. And so, Talene, do you want to read and explain the last question?
Yeah, so the last question right now that we have before opening up to Q&A is just kind of asking what exactly a holistic review of an application entails and what it means when that's said.
So I'll speak for myself because I'm not sure where everyone else stands. But for me, a holistic review is more about who you are as a person and how your life, values, plan aligns with what we are trying to accomplish at our residency program. So I spend the bulk of my time when I'm looking at your applications, primarily reading the personal statement and reading the letters of recommendation to help me have a sense of who you are and if you'll fit with our program. With us being a community-based program and we volunteer quite a bit in the community, individuals that have more volunteer experience that comes across in your application, your personal statement, that does tend to speak to us more because of what we do and how we do things in our community.
For me, holistic review, I mean, I'm echoing a lot of what Thaddeus said, but it's just the start of us trying to get a sense of who you are as an individual, and where there are going to be opportunities for us to help you reach your career goals. And I think it's also just thinking from a holistic approach is just the fact that there's not going to be any absolutes. There's not any like, if this, then yes or no, you know, and just not having any absolutes, but that basically anyone who applies can have the opportunity to be considered for an interview.
I think for me, it's just giving the balanced consideration to their life experiences and the other experiences they had. Just a very flexible and individualized way. I think it really broadens the criteria as well, the selection criteria for us, if you go that route.
I think for us, it actually starts with a holistic review of who we are as a Hennepin Region Psychiatry Training Program, that we are a program that leans toward the underserved of our community. And that, in that respect, we're looking for people with that kind of heart and with that passion for our mission. So we're looking for evidence of that in their personal statement, that they're people who are already maybe tied into our community, or they are tied into similar efforts in their own communities of reaching toward that community, or they're very concerned about the severe and persistent mentally ill in their communities.
And I'll just add, everybody said it beautifully. The George Washington University program, it's in Washington, D.C. So we're in the heart of social, cultural, political. I mean, we have almost 187 nationalities in the United States here. We treat the richest of the rich and the poorest of the poor. We look at the whole, from the word itself, holistic. It's a flexible, individualized way of assessing an individual, and be it the metrics, be it the experiences, the attributes, all the competencies, we take the individual as a whole, and we align it with the mission of our program, which is humanistic psychiatry.
Well, thank you. And so I think at this point, we are going to move into the open Q&A. We had a number of questions that were sent to us in the chat, both privately and just to everybody. But and so I apologize if we can't get to all the questions. We'll try to get to as many of them as possible. The first question that I was going to read out loud was any advice for applicants who are couples matching to different specialties, especially if one partner has already received an invitation, but the other has not? We've had this come up a couple of times. Yeah. Has that happened with you guys at your programs?
Dr.
Yeah.
Bora.
Yeah, go ahead. So we just had one, and the one that received politely wrote a letter and said, I have one, but my partner doesn't. Is there any way you can help me? So, and I said, I'll see what I can do. So, you know, they're being polite and asking what, I mean, you know, because they want to come to the place and they want to come as a couple. I think that's one way to do it.
Yeah. I would add, because Hackensack Meridian Health, we have actually 2 sister psychiatry residency programs at Jersey Shore and Ocean University Medical Center. So, you know, we are dealing with a lot of applicants and a lot of residency programs at both university hospitals. So I see that a lot. I think it's just informing the program director that, you know, my partner received, you know, letter of intent from the sister program. That will really help us. If you don't let us know, then we won't know that how serious you are. I think that really increases your chances as well. If I know that your partner is accepted, you know, or at least getting a letter of intent at the internal medicine program, at the sister program, and you are informing us, that will help us when we are doing our encoder list.
Yeah, we've had it happen both ways, where somebody received an invitation from us and their partner did not. And so they reached out to us. And so we reached out to the program director, and the program director was generally happy to extend an invitation, and vice versa, where the partner received an invitation and then that program director sent us an email and said, hey, you know, this applicant has a partner who's applying in psychiatry. Can you take a look at their application? So it kind of goes both ways, I think. But yeah, just getting that information out there is just the most important thing.
So for our next question, you guys kind of touched on this a little bit, but we were hoping you could elaborate on any advice you might have for non-US IMGs.
I think for me, we review kind of the same criterion. And I think, you know, if I have a good sense, you know, one of the things that Christina talked about too is like coming in and taking overnight call, it's a lot of demand. And so having a good sense of things that you've done clinically and including recent clinical activity, if there's been kind of gaps throughout, just knowing that you've had like recent clinical experiences, and I have a good sense that you're going to be able to hit the ground running if there's been like gaps in the past. But otherwise, I think kind of just the same rules apply to how we review things.
I do think it's really important to have U.S. clinical experience to really know how the U.S. healthcare system works, and you know, to have a good sense for how American patients think.
And I think somebody put it in the chat that if there's a long gap as well, and being a US IMG, you have applied in match last year and you didn't get match, it will really help us if you tell us how you best utilize your time after you did not get match. That did you get like MPH, or you know, you were just doing some elective rotations or observerships and whatnot. I know with COVID things have been really difficult, but overall just utilizing that time in the meaningful way when you did not get match, that will really help you as well.
I'll add to that. So I'm an IMG, so I know the struggles of an IMG. To add, you know, the other thing that's key is the interview, and practicing your best, because you've got 25 minutes with the program director, 25 minutes with the faculty. You really have to show what you have, and it's a lot. It's a lot for you, but if you can convey your interest, convey how fluent you are, but more importantly, that you can still maintain your authenticity. I think that's key. The issue about the gap, that's also legitimate, and how you try and narrow the gap with as much US experience, knowing the colloquial, but more important, the cultural differences. I think that's very important. Other than that, there are a lot of resources that the APA has. I think the advert in helping IMGs, they're very much available on the web or the internet.
Great, thank you. So next question, what is the general view of psychotherapy and psychiatry, and what would you recommend to medical students interested in psychotherapy? Would any level of psychotherapy training be recommended during medical school?
Motivational interviewing. Go to some sort of formal motivational interviewing training if you can get it. A weekend training seminar or something like that, so that you really get the opportunity to work with people in kind of that process of building alliance and working to move people in behavioral change toward a common goal.
I would agree with Scott. That's awesome if you can do that, but it's really not required for residency. But being able to, if you had the time, to speak to what you have learned, even in rotations, like, oh, I saw, my psychiatrist that I worked with on the inpatient unit, and he was often doing some supportive psychotherapy, just kind of listening and encouraging them to make positive change, or whatever you were able to learn on your rotations, to be able to verbalize that. But it is not required, because we're going to do that once you get in residency.
That's so true. And I think if that aligns with where your interests are at this time as a student, then do it. And if there's something else that you're really excited about, if you're really excited about interventional psychiatry or a research project that you're involved in, like chase the things that you're interested in and find the programs that you can continue to develop it. But I wouldn't say, like it's not required to do it to get into the program.
Agreed.
I honestly think that psychotherapy is what makes psychiatrists psychiatrists. I think everybody looks to psychiatrists as and medication management as like the highest, quote unquote, like skill set that we have. But I think psychotherapy is actually the highest skill set that we have. I think, medication management is something I don't think that is that I wish everybody trained as well in psychotherapy as they did in medication management, and that they valued it as much as they did medication management, because I think that to be an excellent psychiatrist, you have to be able to talk to patients and work with patients. And to do that, even if you're not doing psychotherapy on a day-to-day basis, like you have to know how to understand patients, how to talk to patients, and that comes from your psychotherapy training. And that was actually one of the reasons I went to Rush University for my training. They were affiliated with the Institute of Psychoanalysis in Chicago. it was an amazing training, actually, because half of our supervisors were psychoanalysts. And so whenever we had our psychotherapy training, they would talk to us about Freud and about like all these, you know, like really old analysts and just the stuff that I think really doesn't get talked about in training as much anymore, at least doesn't get focused on as much anymore. Now when I hear like residents, like what they want to learn about, like they want to hear like didactics about psychopharmacology, about stall. I mean, I taught stall psychopharm, you know, I've done all that stuff too, but again, like my heart is really in psychotherapy. And if you get the chance to focus on psychotherapy in your training, like I really encourage you guys to do that. And I will also say, if you get the chance, everybody tells you like participate in your own therapy as a resident if you can, but nobody like really gives you the details on how to do that. I'll tell you that I personally spent 7 years doing therapy as a patient, starting in residency, starting my intern year at Rush. And I went 3 times a week and went for 7 years. And it was like a life-changing experience. And it's actually made me, I think, like one of the things that made me like the best part of like being a psychiatrist, I think. So I would highly encourage that. Keep that in mind. And yeah, don't undervalue that. So.
Now I can like reveal my bias. I tried to be like, whatever interests you in the field is what you should look into as a medical student, but I do chair the ADPERT Psychotherapy Committee. There is really, there is commentary in the literature about the integration of the skills as being the top of the license. So not taking this reductionistic like medications only, but the ability and the experience and the training to integrate biological and psychological interventions is really what the top of the psychiatric license is. So, so if that's, you know, I agree, it's important for everybody.
This might be one of our last questions, I think, just because of time, but one of the questions is looking forward, is it anticipated that interviews will be virtual next year?
I know I will be doing virtual interviews next year because I was doing them before the pandemic, and we're going to continue.
We might do a hybrid. You know, it is a like we were discussing before we came on. The average medical student spends probably $5,000 just to get around, flying and all the hotel expenses. But so this year we take 6 interns. Now, not one of them had seen the hospital, so they stepped on it for the first time. Do we have the option of having them come in for a second? And again, it's just voluntary. It would not in any way, you know, affect their ranking. But do they have the option of coming in to see the place? Again, we're in DC, so if you live in California, we don't want to ding folks who have to spend $400. But those who live nearby, do they have that option of doing that? Again, that's still up in the air. That is a possibility. But the pandemic has opened up a lot of possibilities.
I mean, I think time will tell with the pandemic. We thought the pandemic would be over by this year, right? So, and here we are. So we'll see, I think, for next year. So, I mean, we're doing everything virtually this year based on recommendations that were given to us by like governing, like accrediting bodies, right? So we'll see how things go, I think, based on the
It's
pandemic.
also a concern about leveling the playing field. You know, it's like, you know, even if you do a hybrid model, you know, if we do optional open houses, are they really optional? You know, would you as an applicant feel that if you chose not to go to an optional open house that you were being judged in the same way that someone who did go to that open house was being evaluated. And so, you know, really we decided to go kind of all in virtual in order to make it fair for everybody. So it's a tough question. I shared with the panel before you guys joined us that my residents would really like to go back to in-person interviews, but the cost, that I just think that is so huge for applicants. It really would intimidate me to think about the number of applicants having to spend the amount of money that they have to on top of what they're already spending to get educated.
All right, well, I think we need to wrap it up. We are right at 9 o'clock. And so thanks again to everybody who joined us tonight. Thanks to all the medical students who joined us. Thanks to the program directors who joined us. Dr. Afzal, Dr. Borja, Dr. Carey, Dr. Oakman, Dr. Crocker. Thanks to Talene Aydinian, who helped organize this event. And I think she wanted to just mention a little something about PsychSIGN before we wrap up.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make sure everybody is aware that we do have a mentorship program that you can sign up for any year of med school. So if you guys are interested in being paired with a mentor, I'm going to put my email in the chat. And you can just send me an email and I'll get to assigning you a mentor. And I also wanted to do a shout out just to the Psychiatry Network that Dr. Gurgis founded, especially for us in fourth year who are going to be residents pretty soon. It's a really great organization to be a part of from residency and onward. So just want to make sure everybody keeps that in mind. And also just again, thank you to all of our program directors for really giving us such good insight tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care and everybody have a good night. All right, bye.